Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm the host of Respect My Region's High Women podcast, where we talk to influential women in music and cannabis. On today's show, we have the pleasure of speaking with Adrienne Kern. She's the Director of Leadership and Development of the ASHE Society. Today, we're going to discuss her career in cannabis, social equity and cannabis marketing opinions, and the ASHE Society, and more. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. This week seems to have just skated right by. I mean, now we're approaching 420, and it's just a matter of time.
For
How are
real.
you? Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah,
But
I'm
how are
doing
you
super
doing?
good. I'm just chilling in Florida. I'll be going out to Miami this weekend to do some ultra festivities. Um, but yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that's
super psyched for the
nice.
weekend. Yeah,
Do they still have the curfew lockdown in Miami?
yeah, there was like a shooting literally like I guess this weekend, so there's like it's on high alert. But
Oh man.
yeah, I'm
Well,
still gonna
hopefully
go
it'll be
though.
a safe
So
weekend.
yeah, no, I think Miami like they've handled so many festivals before. I feel like they're super capable of like making the things as safe as possible. Especially now, like being on high alert is kind of like better for the festival goers. I think, anyways, because just more safety. Can't go
Yeah,
wrong with that.
that is it's best to be safe versus not. So whatever they need to implement and higher security, whatever it needs to be, we're just in a very strange time right now.
Yeah,
Um, but that's why I think cannabis is right on. It's perfect for our mental health. Our physical health is just great for so many different things. But I mean, I'm glad that if we were to have a surge or a trend in using this as a medicine, I think right now is a perfect time. Not to say that it wasn't 50 years ago, but I just feel like right now it's just the state that we're in is perfect.
yeah, and there's a lot more research and development and just like super intelligent people like grinding and taking over the industry, making it like flourish into what we hope to keep seeing it grow into.
Hmm.
It's been wonderful having this podcast and being able to talk to some awesome women like you who's just been like killing the game and just taking the opportunity that is this growing industry in this time, right, to get into it and you know uh distribute it for like the people. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's who it's for. At the end of the day, to help medicinally or
Hmm.
recreationally. What do you feel weed should be used for?
I think it should be used for whatever you want to use it for. That's always been my motto. Just to tell you a little bit more about how I was introduced to cannabis is, well, first and foremost, my parents. So when my mother first met my father, they worked together, and she just saw this, young man sweeping the floor, and she walks up to him and is like, "Hey, do you smoke?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I smoke weed." And she was like, "All right, meet me after work." So they met up after work, they smoked a joint, and from there on, they just kept, meeting up at the apartment, having a good time, listening to music, smoking a nice J. And then my sister was born. And so from there, it was just like my mom even told me, like, she had a hard time giving up cannabis when I was in her stomach. And I'm just like, look, I mean, so I was introduced from the womb, is what I'm trying to say. And then I actually was instrumental in reintroducing cannabis to my mother and father because they had quit for, well, my father kind of did it low key, but my mom completely quit, and
Mm,
she turned religious, turned into like a family woman. And I was able to go back and say, hey, cannabis is different now. You don't have to, your relationship to cannabis then can be completely different now. And here's why. So I think
yeah.
laying out those like strong points that it's lab tested, that it's safe, that you can microdose on it, you can control what kind of experience that you want. I think all of those things really help people feel more at ease. And that's exactly the consumer that we're trying to like have those conversations with over at ASHE Society. We want to redefine what a cannabis user looks like, what they, how, whether they be professional, whether they have, a regular street sweeping job, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. It's just like what do you need this medicine for? But it's our job to educate the public on everything that it offers. And there's just so many different cannabinoids that are being discovered. So now those cannabinoids are being isolated for more strategic purposes, whether it be for sleep, whether it be you want to lose weight, or you need, you need clarity and focus, whatever it is, or pain relief. It's those cannabinoids are present, and we're just now at like the beginning stages of discovering all that it offers. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but that is
No, yeah.
basically how I got introduced to cannabis.
Yeah, and your background is in teaching and education as well. So how did you kind of marry those two loves together, cannabis and teaching?
I think I always kind of somewhat been like an influencer in a sense before social media. I'm turning 40 this year. So,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I only spent a year teaching. It was one of those moments in my adulthood where I felt like I really wanted to have a more broader and diverse scope of the world. So I wanted to travel. And what happened was I ended up finding out about a friend whose brother taught in Korea, and I started looking
Mm,
a little bit more deeply into it. And I figured out, hey, I could teach English as a second language in Thailand. And so I did that at 27, and then lived out in Thailand for a year. And I had the best time of my life. And I thoroughly enjoyed the process of teaching. I think that how it's helped me, though, is so I guess this will kind of bleed into a next phase of my career, which was my introduction to the cannabis industry. It was actually as a brand ambassador working for Kiva.
okay.
So that same kind of setting of educating people was very present in my job as a brand ambassador working with Kiva. And at the time, Kiva was only like a 4-year-old company.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I was one of their first brand ambassador teams to start with them. It was short lived. I was a brand ambassador for 3 months before becoming a territory manager, one of the first three in the state for Kiva. And from there, I was a territory manager for like 7.5 years. So my luck, I mean, I'm just pretty lucky because I also moved from Atlanta, Georgia. Well, actually, a place called it's the east side of Atlanta called Stone Mountain, Georgia. I moved from Stone Mountain and drove 3 days to California. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't know where I was gonna. I mean, I didn't know where I was gonna stay. I didn't have any family. I just basically saved up like $8,000 and drove my Honda 3 days out to California. Um,
Manifested success.
yeah, and it's just, I guess what really made me know more about the cannabis industry here, because that's not why I moved here, obviously, was so I stayed in K Town. I did find a studio apartment when I first moved here. I found it off of Craigslist. And then I met the landlord's son, and he said, "Hey, do you smoke?" And I'm like, still kind of fearful of the stigma. And I'm like, sometimes, occasionally. And he was like, "All right, well, let me show you something." So he takes me to the rooftop of this K Town, apartment overlooking the skyline of LA. And he was just like, "So what do you smoke? Sativas, hybrids, indicas?" And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Break it down for me." And so he broke it down. And then I was like, well, I think I would be more interested in sativas. But you know what? This just opened my mind up to like, I don't know anything about cannabis. I don't know anything. I just thought you smoke it, you get high, period.
Right.
We weren't even really doing edibles in the South. I mean, you heard about it, but that's something that's really, you're skeptical of that because you don't know how high you're going to get.
Right,
And I
right,
didn't live
right.
on that adventurous side, but yeah, that's what prompted me to start learning more online. And I went right back to Craigslist looking for some positions. I just wanted to work as a bud tender. But to my surprise, I don't know if it was because I felt, maybe I was overqualified because I worked in marketing. But nobody hired me, but I
Hmm.
lucked up and found out about the position with Kiva. And I sat with Christy Navlik Palmer. She's the co-founder of Kiva. And then a day later, I met Scott Palmer, and we just had a great conversation. And we kicked it off really well. And it was such an honor to serve, Kiva, and to see them grow, not just as a number one edible brand, but as a major distributor in California, soon to be nationwide. They're already nationwide as far as Kiva brands, but it's amazing to see how this industry in California has changed so quickly over time, and I do feel lucky to be a part of, and I've learned so much in the process.
What was like one of your biggest takeaways so far from being in the cannabis industry?
Biggest takeaway. I think I'm still taken away.
For
um,
real.
yeah, I think for me, it's just, I don't know if I have a takeaway. I really don't. I don't know if I have a takeaway yet. I think I'm still observing the journey. And
True.
the journey, as I see it, is you have such a great plant medicine, and then to see it appreciated by the community and those who enjoy it, and then to see it, you know, be commercialized and also capitalized off of. And we're still in that process, right? So you think about the next 2 years, what that's going to look like. It's going to look like, you know, all these tobacco pharmaceutical companies getting involved. And what is that going to look like? Well, we have a great example as far as the beer and wine industry, the alcohol industry. I think it's going to transition into something that looks more like that. And what I fear though is that it'll kind of take away from, the kind of community aspect of it.
Mm.
However, I don't think that that is true because in its entirety, because I just think about like, how I typically use it. I love it for social purposes. I love to like that was the introduction to the cannabis industry that I knew. It was like I could go inside any dispensary, there will be a dab bar, or if I'm pitching a product, I pitch it to the buyer and we smoke it together. We try it out, we bond, we connect. So I always have this thing that I feel that cannabis is primarily used for me as a form and a medium to connect people. Breaks down that anxiety, the stresses that you have from everyday life, and it allows us to be able to communicate like we're doing right now. But there's a deeper level of communication I think that cannabis, allows for us to have. And so I think that'll always be there. I just think that the industry is what is
For
going to
sure.
take away.
Yeah, when capitalism gets involved, you know what I mean? There can be some times where like the message kind of gets lost and it's more about, like the flashy colors and stuff like that, but I think I think the people and the communities that like actually smoke it and the consumer is what can essentially like keep, the culture going. And as much as companies can try to instill that, which is great, like to keep the culture alive and to have it not be like gatekeeping, very like let's tell the people, how this plant can be helpful and we're like moving towards that. I feel like as much as people can like just bring them in and just tell them about it, I think that's the best thing we can do is to just, educate more people on it. And then that way the culture can kind of evolve, right? And we
Hmm.
can include some of those groups that we've never seen before, like how ASHE Society does it, where, it doesn't matter, who you are. At the end of the day, it's like we want to get this plant to help you, you know what I mean, and to get rid of the
Exactly.
stigma. Yeah, because I think
Exactly.
killing the stigma, I think, is like important because there's so many people that can let this idea about it stop them from actual pain management or for it to be an actual alternative. So I think it's super important that we just keep having these conversations because yeah, people need it. I think
I
so.
agree. And I actually will have to credit cannabis to allowing my parents' relationship to go to a whole deeper level. They actually reverted back to when they first met. After all these years, they've been together for 42 years. And after all these years, I mean, there were phases where it's like they were very separate and individuals, and then they were just focused on raising a family. And so that bonding time with each other was kind of like obsolete. And then, they were reintroduced to cannabis. Was it last year? Sometime last year. I think it was around Christmas. Um, where I slipped my mom a Petromint. Was like, Mom, it's a mint. Well, I mean, I wouldn't give you something that's going to make you feel crazy. I would. It's like such a low dose. You're probably not even going to feel
Right.
it.
Yeah, for
It's like
sure. Like the little
just
5 milligram. Yeah.
Yeah, the mint is actually 2.5. So I was like, and
Oh yeah,
I
exactly.
educated her. I was like, 5 milligrams is what it takes the average, person to feel anything. So I'm giving this to you below that threshold, which is super safe. And you don't have to worry about the panic or the attack or whatever. And so that was her reintroduction. And because it was approved by her, then that gave my dad complete freedom to be able to consume as well. So I send them little, well, I can't say this online, but yeah, I send them little care packages. And, I'm just like, hey, you guys enjoy it. And then they send me videos or they'll call me up late and they're partying. They're listening to house music. They're
Mm,
chilling. They're connecting and having such a good time to see that level of freedom. I think this is what this is all about. It's just about freedom. Who are you to
yeah,
tell me I can't use something that's beneficial and helpful to me? And that's where
right.
I stand on cannabis and anything else. I mean,
And
mushroom.
totally, and I love like sharing like the bong or just like a joint too, because it almost like makes me feel like back in the Native American times where they're like passing around the pipe, and it's
Hmm.
kind of this like group bonding experience, and it totally feels that way. I don't know, I see it through those eyes, right?
Yeah.
And you really are kind of like putting yourself in a place of equal headspace, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like very interesting to be able to talk to friends, like, because getting drunk with people is an experience in of itself too, right? You find kind of like who you are in that persona, like how you know um those different chemicals mix with your brain. But like weed is like, I'll be thinking about, I should call my mom right now, like I should go do the laundry, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm having such like positive thoughts when I'm on weed, and then there's some people that have anxiety with it. And I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't know the human brain, as much as a doctor, but like I feel like part of the reason why some people can get so much anxiety is due to the stigma, right? And due to
Hmm.
their thoughts taking over the experience, and not letting like their body truly like accept the feeling. And so they see it as scary, like the self-doubt, like I shouldn't feel this way. So it just
Hmm.
mixes into this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy of like I'm going to get anxious on weed, just like I was told I was going to. um and
I'll
it's
agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
I think
because
I'll
there's
agree.
even because there's even some strains that are supposed to help with anxiety. So I'm like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? It's so interesting, like how that can happen. But we even wrote at RMR a little article. If you get too high, what to do. Um, you know what I mean? You can just kind of ride it out. Because there's a lot
Yeah.
of things online that'll be like sniff some pepper and like do all this stuff, and I feel like people can get really upset with like all these methods that aren't working, right? But straight to the point, really not much you can do other
Yeah.
than to like accept it and just distract yourself like anything, you know what I mean? Like you're having a bad time, go listen to
Exactly.
some music, you know what I mean? Just go vibe. Like just
That's
put
it.
yourself in the environment that, you want to that can re-encourage the positive thoughts, right?
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's just about like finding what works for you as far as grounding yourself. I found that what works for me is if I do find that my heart is racing, and that could be also due to like, your blood pressure or your sugar levels, insulin. It's just like there could be a lot of chemical factors. Also, the stress and anxiety of that day. If you had a stressful day at work,
For sure.
hit a joint and you get that instant spike when you smoke versus edible, which is more gradual and delicate with your system, right? But for me, if I get that panic, my trick is I'll listen to meditative music or I'll lie down on the floor flat, just
Mm,
lie down with my back
get
against the ground.
grounded.
Yeah, because it grounds me and it's actually does slow my heart rate down. And if you need to elevate your feet, you could do that too. That's something that they teach you just in the medical world in general. If your heart is racing, you could just raise your feet up. So those are kind of like
Hmm,
the tips and tricks that I share with people, besides the, take some CBD. I mean, but I feel like if you're preparing for for you to panic or have an uncomfortable experience, I mean, it's great to always have CBD lying around,
for sure.
just as a supplement or something like that, or you just take it every day for pain management, whatever you use it for. It's great to have around, but a lot of times you tell like a stoner to have CBD around, they're just like, okay, so you mean to tell me I'm gonna have
Sure.
to buy a $60 bottle of CBD just to like in case I get too high? Um,
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see what other people do. You just have to kind of know your system and know what works for you. And like my
Yeah.
wife used to smoke all the time, but now she doesn't feel comfortable doing it. She had a bad
Mm.
panic attack, and she tried to, continue to smoke after, and every time she would, it would just cause her system
Mm.
to be chaotic.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where she's like, you know what? It's not for me. And some people, it's not for them.
Yeah.
It really is not for them. So I'm not going to
Yeah.
be like, the pusher man. I'm like, no, it's here for you if you need it,
If you
but
need it, right?
otherwise, yeah,
Yeah. Cause at the end of the day, it's just like, do you need an Advil right now or don't you? Right? Do you have a
right,
headache or don't you? You know what I mean?
right,
So you don't need to take something you don't need. But it's nice for the people that didn't know they had it as an option to know that they have it as an option. Um,
exactly.
I wanted to ask, what does ASH stand for?
So ASH stands for, it's an acronym actually. So A stands for advocacy, the S stands for social equity, the H stands for health, and the E stands for equality. So, it's just like over at ASH, I joined ASH about 7 months ago. I'm sorry, E stands for education, but
Hmm.
I joined ASH about 7 months ago, and I joined because I like what they stood for, but also I liked what the owner was about.
Hmm.
I like that the owner, so the owner name is Elaine Liu. And for me, it was important after serving so many years in the cannabis space to know like what my next move was and how I was going to be of service to the cannabis industry. And I definitely didn't want to make my decision based off of, how much money I was going to get paid. Because for me, what drives me is passion, purpose, and profit is great. But if those two parts are not aligned, I just it'll work short term, but long term it wouldn't work for me because I'll still feel like there's a void and I'm
I
not
feel
doing
that.
enough. So I had other offers to join other companies and make a lot more money, and I knew that being in the retail space was going to be much different than being on the distro side or the brand side. But I was willing to take that loss financially, to be of better service and to actually get out of that rat race of sales. But what I loved about Elaine was that she asked me what was it that I was looking for, in a company and what was important to me. And I did feel heard. I felt like she listened to me and she said, these are all the things that we can provide you. And she really does have an enormous heart. And I think that is the core of Ash as a company culture is is that same heart. It's just like, look, we're gonna be passionate about what we do. We're not gonna be driven solely just to make profit. You see a lot of players getting into this space. They have all the investment dollars in the world, right? They can do anything they can buy anyone they want to buy. But look, we're a women-owned, minority-owned, and family-owned business, and so we want to support others that, are also women owned, minority owned. I mean, within our store, we have over 1,300 different products. And so in brands, we have like over 70. So of those 70, we have about, 15 women owned brands that we support.
Ooh.
And I didn't really even realize it. This is obviously we're celebrating Women's History Month this month, but it wasn't until so I'm actually working more so with the marketing department at the moment, and like with any startup company, you join as your title is one thing, but then you see all the spaces that you need to help out in, and so you're kind of like all over the place wearing multiple hats, but so I was looking into the women-owned brands that we work with, just so we can highlight them and we can bring more brand awareness around, who they are. And I actually didn't think we had that many brands that we supported. I thought maybe it would be about five, but definitely didn't think, 15 brands. I mean, that's really great. And I think that um, our buyer Jackie, she really has a heart to support women-owned brands as well, and just like up and coming brands. It's just like the way she chooses products is like she wants to help the family owned business, for instance. You know, she wants to help like just the guys that you don't expect to succeed in this industry. And so that's pretty much how we choose our products. But also, of course, we go with the top brand selling in California as well, because that's what our customers want. Um, but yeah, it's just it. I think for me, company culture is everything. And if you don't have that, then you don't have me.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
real, I think a lot of companies underestimate the importance of employee sustainability, and they lose out on some great minds and, some people's time, because at the end of the day, like, if you can keep your people happy, they're going to want to stay. Like, I work two different jobs right now, and both of them are kind of like the most ideal situation for me in terms of like environment. Like you're saying, like I've taken a
Hmm.
deficit of pay as well, because I also enjoy my environments like a lot. With RMR, for example, I get to work from home. I get to work with one of my really good friends that I met like in high school, and we work together on several projects. I've worn several hats in this company as well, and then I also work a restaurant job where I'm a hostess. But my best friend is the manager of that too, and it's just
Wow.
really fun. I just love it. Yeah, I'm 22, so I have a little bit of time, and I've saved up some money, so I give myself this like little bit to enjoy, like, you know what I mean, this really like cool time, and especially in RMR, like they're super good at like making you making sure, like, you have all the tools, and also just like praising you when it's like needed. I really love that too, because like that extra little like, hey, by the way, we noticed you were doing this, really just kind
Yeah.
of helps me stay motivated and be like, okay, so I'm doing the right thing. I really like
Yeah,
that.
you're right about that. It's so needed and it's so important to affirm one another, you know? Um, Part of being a director of leadership and development is, once a quarter we have team bonding events, and we just we've only had one since I've been here. The next one is coming up after 420. But, it's just like simple things like renting out an Airbnb home, throwing a nice, party, having a DJ, having food, just having a time for everybody to come together and feel celebrated is really important, because they don't forget about those moments and they do feel rewarded. And if you stay with the company long enough, you'll think that all companies do the same thing. And it's not until you venture off
Yeah.
and explore the other grass and realize, wow, it's really not greener. It's actually taking a step back. And I think that I was reading somewhere on, I think it was either Indeed or LinkedIn, where it talked about like, candidates looking for the right opportunity, over like 75% of them, are looking for, part of their criteria is the company culture has to be intact. Like in company culture is everything, and more about, I think they said about 50% of people would love for that to be in the job description. You think about it, and you don't ever see that in the job description. They talk about perks and benefits, and sometimes they'll even hit on salary and compensation, but for the most part they don't talk about like, what does our company culture look like. And I think that that's really important to talk about it, because you don't want that element of surprise after you join a company, because that's when you're going to have that high turnover as far as like employees coming in and out, and that's not good to sustain any business, especially when you're trying to scale, you're trying to grow. It's just not. So why not just take care of the great employees that you have and show them how much you appreciate them outside of employee of the month, outside of just your typical norm. It's just like, just saying how great someone did today is, I'm always affirming those who I work with, just because I know like that's what I want to attract for myself too. We all want it, regardless if you're in a, executive position or not. We just all want it, you know.
Yeah. And what would you say your leadership style is?
My leadership style is mainly just like a lead by example, like everything that I want to ask of someone else to do, I need to show them how to do it first. Or I need to show them, if I want them to work harder, I have to be transparent so they can see how hard I'm working, and that how hard their team members are working. But I feel like, you know, I just feel like it's just important to value those around you, period. And I feel like if you do that, then everybody wants to help each other out. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. For instance, social media. I'm like, I have such a hard time getting into that personally. Professionally, I know it needs to be done. So we do have, a social media coordinator for that. She takes care of everything. Her name is Mari. But she teaches me a lot. She teaches me like what's trending, what's not, what's important to post. And I just learn everything from her. So we're learning together. There's things that I can share as far as my past experiences, but I try to keep things new and fresh. We can all approach our jobs with this whole copy paste mentality, bringing over what we've learned from another company. But I think that gets stale over time because you're not making it custom to your work environment and the people that you work with, who are entirely different set of people. So I think it's important to draw that creativity from the people that you work with. And the answers I found, this is key for me, but the answers that I found to every problem can be answered by the people that you work with. A lot of times we outsource third party companies for data analytics to help us, expand and grow and drive ourselves. But at the end of the day, if you're not talking to our bud tenders about like what customers are saying about the products we do carry and what they would like for us to carry, then we've missed a whole important step here. We're not engaging with our own staff. And I think it's also important to be who you say you are.
For sure.
Is if and I've challenged every company I've worked with, I would say. Probably every company I've worked with in my life, I've challenged them when it comes to doing and being what you say you are. Including ASHE. If we say we're about, social equity, if we're about, health, if we're about education, if we're about all these things and advocacy, if we're about these things, then how are we really doing that? Not in the safe way, in a very in a way that there's a strong conviction behind our intentions, if that makes sense. It's like we
For
have to
sure.
do it from our heart. And it's challenging because you don't always have the time. You don't, life can be so really busy just doing the mundane everyday activities and trying to keep up with competitors and things like that. But it's really important to company culture to be who you say you are, not just try to look the part to,
Yeah.
that's just how I feel about it. But
Yeah, because it's one thing to say, like, we're a brand that cares about the people, and then, to go around and not do, like, quality checks or, you know, not really live their truth or, like,
mhm.
what they say their truth is, it can really tarnish the reputation of a plant that, like, people are trying to fight the stigma for, you know what I mean? If you come in and you try to lie about what you're doing and, like, just to make money off of the buzzwords, then, you're hurting the industry a little bit.
Big
But
time. We've seen plenty examples of that, like with I mean, so I don't want to call out. I mean, we have a call out culture. I don't want to call out anybody, but we know we've seen it on the news. Like, you can't play both games, being in, the black market and then also selling in the legal market. It's just like cushy
yeah,
punch. You know,
yeah,
it's just stuff like that. It's like you gotta. Well, we can move on past that, but you know what I'm
no,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about it, like, what are some of the ways that the ASHE Society goes about advocating and promoting social equity?
Well, we mostly always find a way to link up with an nonprofit organization within our community. Sure, we're willing to work with some companies that are more regional based or state based, but for the most part, we try to work with nonprofits that are within our community. So since my time at ASHE, I can say that we've done things like we worked with our brand partner HVGC. We did the OC food drive. We donated about 214 pounds of canned and dry goods. This month, celebrating Women's History Month, we're working with Yummy Karma and Higher Gorgeous. And we're basically giving our customers a discount. And Yummy Karma also is giving customers a discount, 25% off when they purchase their product and donate, pads, unused, of course, pads, tampons, and panty liners. But that's a big need, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't just do that, in the month of March. We're going to do that ongoing.
Yeah.
Um, but those are just a couple of examples of how we've worked with other organizations. But we're at this stage right now where we're trying to find more, because we usually work with nonprofit organizations through our brand partners. We're also open to working directly with nonprofit organizations, and we're just trying to identify who those nonprofit organizations are that we're really passionate about. And so, what we're doing is we're drawing more on what our employees are passionate about. So, for instance, we might have an employee that's really passionate about the incarceration rates are very high for people of color. We know this. So we can get behind, different organizations as a result of that. But we want it to be fueled by the passion and the belief system that our employees have regarding nonprofit organizations, because we are nothing but the embodiment of our entire staff. So we're trying to identify right now, we're in a brainstorming kind of session. And if anybody out there is listening and you have if you know of any OC based or Santa Ana based nonprofit organizations that we could work with, then shoot it over my way, because that's what we're trying to focus more on doing now. But there's a bunch of organizations that we've donated to in the past, but we just want it to be more ongoing.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that there's been some companies doing like job uh what are they called? Like job fairs.
Job
And they'll
fairs,
have it
uh-huh.
to yeah, they'll have it to like they'll have it open to like formerly incarcerated people that have had like former weed charges and stuff like that. They'll open up
Hmm.
like their platform to have like certain people like work for them in different ways. I think I saw 40 Tons is a brand that we've worked with before, and we know them, and they do big events in Las Vegas, when there's like big conventions over there and stuff like that. They did an NFT for all of the prisoners. They basically made like an NFT for the prisoners that are currently incarcerated, so that when they come out, they'll have like this wallet built by like how many people were involved in the NFT and different things like that.
Oh,
Luckily,
wow, that's interesting.
yeah, luckily there's like so many cool organizations that I've been learning about in the cannabis industry that
Mhm.
are on the social justice side. It's really cool to learn that like there's a lot out there. But I haven't seen any like specifically around incarcerated women specifically. So I feel like there's also um stuff to be done there if there's like more, women
There
centered.
actually is,
Okay.
the Women's Prison Association, I believe is what it's called. Let me make sure I get that right. It's, uh, Women's Prison Association. So this month, because we're increasing brand awareness around the brands that we work with that are women owned. Some of those women-owned brands, we dedicated a whole week of, we'll offer a promotion from them to increase brand awareness, but they even took it a step further. And so for someone like Pure Beauty and Miss Grass, they're both donating their proceeds for the entire week that we offered. So Pure Beauty was week one. So that was for the beginning of the month through the 8th. They
Wow.
donated 100% of their sales to the Women's Prison Association. And the same thing with Higher Edibles. This is the week. If you shop from tomorrow through the 31st, then they'll be donating. Oh, that was Miss Grass. I'm sorry. Week 3, the 17th through the 24th, Miss Grass donated their proceeds to the Women Prison Association. And then week 4, which is this final week, the 24th through the 31st, we have Higher Edibles, and they're running like a BOGO promotion. But yeah, it's there, but it's just like you do have to kind of find out more about how you can get involved, and it gets tricky with doing like hiring, previously incarcerated, people, because unfortunately in this business, if you have a felony on your record, you can't get a job in
Mm.
this industry. Maybe low key, but technically that's the rule. So That makes it
Yeah.
a little bit tricky, but hopefully those laws can change. And I think that the more we are continuing to advocate for people who have previously been incarcerated or have a felony that is based off of like marijuana possession, we just have to like really fight the law when it comes to, I mean, it's already happening. I mean, you basically are getting those laws. What do you call that law? Oh my God.
Overturned.
What is it?
Oh, I was saying overturned, but
Yeah, it's overturned, but it's called something else, and I'm blanking out right now. But yeah,
there's
you
one
get it
in,
overturned, and it's expunged from your record.
yeah,
So that's happening, and I think that's a step towards the right move. But we just have a lot of work to do,
for
because
sure.
that's just one way. But I mean, you talk about like the trauma that's caused. I have a friend who was locked up for 3 years, and he just had, I think, an ounce on him. 3 years in
Yeah.
Alabama. And it traumatized him. He wasn't able to bury his parents who had passed while he was in prison.
Mm,
And you hear about these stories all the time. It's just like, I mean, people are getting years just for, just a few grams,
yeah.
you know?
'Cause it's and that's like I could go on and on about the prison system. I used to be in debate in high school. We've talked extensively just about like the prison system and reform and just like society in general. It's always such an interesting concept to me, like there's some people that can pay to get out of prison and then some people have to spend like years of their life, which I don't think ever really equates to like any kind of amount of money to
Mm-mm.
me personally. Like yeah, to even go through like the death of your parents and you can't even be there, for some people they'll be like, well, choices were made, but at the same time, like sometimes it's not an equitable, I don't know, it's not an equitable
The
thing for
law
me.
shouldn't have ever existed.
Yeah, and
Period.
it was like a racist, what I mean, thing in the beginning anyways, and obviously people know that that's still a part of it, so it's just crazy to me that there's like a booming industry happening on the outside of the walls, and they're in there for being a part of the culture, like when it was in the on the ground. You know what I mean? They're just as valid. Like if they
Yeah.
had just been born later, they could have maybe had a booming business. So like yeah, when it comes to like the felony stuff, when it comes to cannabis specifically, it's always like an interesting boat because they're salesmen at the end of the day. So sometimes it had more to do with that, but I think that they definitely had a skill in some ways to be
Oh,
put in
100%. I
prison.
mean,
So I don't
it could have
know.
been me. Like
Yeah,
I
it could have
sold
been
marijuana.
anybody.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I personally sold marijuana in high school, and it could have been me. But also, it could
right.
have been me here in California, because it could have been a day where, prior to us going fully recreational, prior to 2018, I could have been pitching Kiva in a trap house. And guess what? It got raided that day, and everybody gets
Yeah,
arrested. And those who get arrested get the charge. And it could have just been as something as simple as that. And then poof, there goes my career.
right. Poof, there goes your career. Poof, there goes like your whole concept of reality. Like from now until you get a whole new set of eyes, like a whole new reality, a whole new perspective. And
Yeah.
I think that's like I don't know. We literally could go into the whole prison system like
Yes.
thing for a long time, but
I know.
I'm also equally interested in do you think you'll stay in the cannabis industry forever?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I have been saying that I would love to dive a little bit more deeply into mushrooms as far
Facts.
as an industry. Um, because I see it kind of like emerging the way cannabis did, but as a medicine, I believe in it. I would say I feel more strongly about mushrooms versus cannabis. And the
Okay.
reason why I say that is because I do feel like both equally serve a great purpose, but however, I feel like cannabis is more of a lower vibration and mushrooms
Mm,
is more of a higher vibration. They do two different things. So for me, and for me, mushrooms are more healing and insightful as far as your spiritual journey and path. It's just more opening as far as like, your spiritual energies, right? Whereas
yes.
cannabis, I feel like you can take cannabis every day, which is I do.
Yeah.
Mushrooms, you can't. You just can't. Your
Yeah.
body will quickly build a tolerance for it. So it is going to look like two different industries. However, I'm excited about mushrooms because I feel like as a plant medicine, even though it's not considered a plant, but as a medicine, I feel like it's going to start to open people up more as far as in the form of therapy.
Mm.
More, I'm talking to therapists now who are learning more about it and they're going to start incorporating it into their sessions. They use ketamine, as an introduction to, but like mushrooms is something that they're starting to, just have more conversations around. And a therapist friend that I know, she said that she just recently went to a conference, and she was like she finds it so interesting that you have these people within the industry, within the medical world, and they would suggest that you need to have your own experience before you start experimenting with it with your patients. You need to have your own experience, but they don't tell you how to access it. So,
Mm.
so that's the
Right.
thing.
So it's
So no,
like,
it's yeah, it's low key. It's like you need to try it, but they don't
but
tell you
how?
where you can try it. So
Yeah.
right now, I mean, you can low key buy from Canada, or you can grow it yourself by buying the spore, which is completely legal to buy the spore, and you can grow it yourself. But once you grow it, then that's a whole different story. You can get busted. So there's always going to be that risk until it becomes fully legal. But
Yeah.
I would love to dive more into the mushroom industry personally.
For sure. I also, we talk about it like extensively on the show too. I've had a bunch of guests that have expressed similar admiration for that industry popping up. I'm also super excited about it too. I believe the same kind of thing. What you said, like high vibrational. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I it's definitely something that, like, you know what I mean? I totally believe if you're gonna be someone that's gonna tell someone, hey, I think you should take mushrooms to help, in a therapeutic way. As a therapist, you
Hmm.
should be able to describe that experience. Just as, like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people that go into like the therapist career have had experiences of trauma sometimes, and then that kind of like leads them into their career because they're kind of figuring out their own self and their perspectives and all these kind of people, and it
Yeah.
makes it kind of easier to like learn. It makes it, because like sometimes like that's like what's really like pushing you is like finding out, why is life like this, and like why does this happen, or they can have another experience where someone, there's always like some kind of catalyst, right, that makes
Hmm.
you go into like a very emotionally um pivoted like career. And yeah,
Hmm.
definitely try that stuff out before you're telling people like this is what it's gonna feel like, this is what's gonna, you know what I mean, because like it's so hard to describe a psychedelic experience to someone that hasn't
Yeah.
sometimes, like,
Hmm.
and then coming from a place of never doing it and then like, describing it to someone that's never done it is like, yeah, a total disconnect for sure.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I haven't even had a full on. I mean, I have as far as mushrooms, I haven't like just thrown 2 grams down my throat. When I first tried it, I was a bit apprehensive and afraid, and I just tried small amounts. And I definitely was introduced to what mushrooms can do for me, but it was never like a blowout, like psychedelic journey. But I have taken ayahuasca, which is the most potent form of DMT that you could possibly take. And so now my exploration with mushrooms, I do feel safer to go for a larger dose in the right set and setting if that's what I choose to do. But I really love mushrooms for the purpose of microdosing. I just feel like it should be used as a supplement, something that you take, every, you know, 2 to 3 days, and you take it no differently than you take your B12 or your vitamin C. And it just, that brain fog for me is, it clears it up. It makes me feel more connected to the world around me and to myself. And that's the reason why I take it. There's a lot of different reasons why, but also I think for me, it works as far as clearing up those emotional blockages. I've never
for
cried as much
sure.
as I cried on mushrooms and DMT, but it's just like it just is an opener. We've been like this, once we got past that childhood stage, the stresses and the tension and anxieties and the trauma, they build up over time, and it just makes you kind of close in. And that's not who we are. Who we are more like how you see children. They explore the world through curiosity. They explore the world not with judgment. It's just not even shame until they
Yeah.
learn those things, you know?
The
So I
ego.
want us to get back to that.
For sure. Yeah, cuz sometimes, and I've done mushrooms too, but sometimes I believe, like, you wish you could just bottle those feelings and, like, let someone else experience it or experience it again. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's
Hmm.
just like such overwhelming joy, and there's so many people that could use overwhelming joy. You know what I mean? In so many scenarios, there's a lot of people with depression that it could help. There's just like, people that are like in end stage of their life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Transitioning to death. You know what I mean? That could
Yep.
definitely uh that could open their eyes, that could make them feel maybe a better type of way about it.
More at
I just know that
peace.
it's, yeah, like that clarity and just that, yeah, you're right, like that emotional, like, opening.
Opening. Yeah.
It really does, like, physically, like, make you feel relaxed as well once it's, like, over as well. Like a
Yeah.
really good cry afterwards, you just feel like, I let it out. Even if you laugh so hard you start crying, you know what I mean? Afterwards you're like,
Yes.
oh, like,
Exactly.
feel
Either
so,
way it
like,
goes.
euphoric.
Perfect.
Yeah. And that's why I love weed too sometimes, because I think for me I use it, both ways, but there's like a
Hmm.
lot of times where it's just nice to be in control of that happiness that for me
Hmm.
it makes me feel, you know what I mean? Like, you could go for a run, and sometimes I do go on my walks, like, to feel better, but sometimes for me, like, if I have a panic attack or something, or just, I'm stressing, it really does help me, calm down and kind of look at it from a secondary perspective, or at least just, like, I'll just be like chilling out, and then I'll be thinking, I wasn't irrational, but I was at a heightened state of emotion, and
Right.
now I can, like, kind of ease into thinking about it more rather than feeling it.
It's interesting that you say that because I actually do feel like, and this is what I share with people, is that I feel like, um, cannabis is like a fast track way of meditating. It's like you haven't quite figured out how to meditate. It's a fast track way to get you there. So you experience what it's like to meditate, to quiet your thoughts and to let your emotions subside, just to let it dissolve. And you're not thinking about anything. You're just surrendering to what is, and you're not allowing the mind to roll and roll and roll with the thought. You're just allowing it to pass, just like clouds in the sky, the same thing. And I think that cannabis puts you in that state where you can actually like do it pretty well without even trying too hard. You're already focused on one thing. I mean, people they say you're spacey. They call it spacey, but it is kind of spacey. I mean, it's a meditative state. So,
Right.
I think that that's where, I mean, we're 5 minutes past 4:20. We should be sparking up right now.
Facts. You're right. But it's different time zones for me, so I'm like way past 4:20
Oh,
over
that's
here.
true. That's true. I forget you're in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, it's always a good time.
Yeah, no, for sure. Always a good time. Like, I'll definitely I try not to smoke before my podcast, because for me, I just like the sentences are hard to find, like a
Yeah.
transition between at times, you know what I mean? Like, I'll just
The
be like,
focus.
how do these
Yeah.
connect? You know?
Yeah.
But but then afterwards, I'm definitely gonna smoke after this and just let the day, because I've also had a long day. Have you had a long day?
You know
Does it
what?
feel
My
like
day
long?
was actually pretty solid. It's been a lot of planning for 420. So I know this is not one of your questions or what you even know about, but
I
and I
love
know you're
talking.
probably not going to be able to take advantage, but we're planning like a huge 420 celebration. We're going with the whole like psychedelic theme to pay homage to
Mm.
those who really have fought to make cannabis legal. So we're paying homage to them as a way to educate, bring back in, that acronym, and to show our customers, what it's really all about. And so we're going to have kind of like that Woodstock,
Ah.
layout with like the old school Beetle car, and just like the aesthetics is going to be pop up mushrooms throughout our lawn. And we're going to have really fun entertainment. It's a band called Mystical Joyride coming out. They're going to perform. We got a freestyle king from Atlanta. His name is John Q. You're going to have a lot of great entertainment, food trucks. I mean, if you think about the best time of the year to shop, you should be saving your money for 420, because like Green Wednesday was pretty is it blew my mind how people came out. It was like shopping Christmas Day for the cannabis
For
industry. But
sure.
420 is where you get the best deals and you get the best time. You get to have fun. You get to be with your people and just have like the most amazing smoke sessions. And it's just a really fun time. So if you ever do get a chance to travel, I would say come to California around the next 420.
I need to come to the west side for so many things. There's so many things that you guys have that Florida just lacks right now. We're such babies in the cannabis industry. I just can't wait till like we're even close. But I know the industry is looking at Florida to be like one of the next spots, the big
Yeah,
tourism hub for cannabis, but we're not there
for
yet.
sure.
But when we start having conventions and stuff, I'm gonna be lending my ears because I want to be involved and talking to people about, their businesses and getting more passion projects like up in people's faces because it's about time like we had more women in minority businesses like at the top, you know what I mean, number
Oh yeah,
one, you know what I mean, businesses because like we can't let these like, you know what I mean, the MSOs just come in and take all the people. Like there's so many cool
yeah.
and interesting brands to like try, sample, be a part of, learn about, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because we all have like all of our individual cannabis businesses have a mission to like do right by the plant and do right by the
Mm-hmm.
people, and they all do those in like different ways, different sustainability practices, different, missions and things like that. And if you, personally as a consumer aren't, you know putting your money into donating for these causes, then put it when you buy into these brands, right?
Yeah.
It's that easy to, if you're going to appreciate the cannabis, further appreciate, the people that built it by helping out, those that need help in the industry as well. Easy to
Yeah,
do.
bridge the gap. That's what I'm saying. I think, having young women like yourself, I mean, you're only 22, Maddie. I mean, you're already being a strong voice by you even having this podcast. And for you to be on the mission that you're on at this age is crazy.
Thank you.
So that's a privilege that's been, provided to you, off the backs of everyone who came before you as well. And so it's just like, you just have to keep paying it forward by doing things that you're passionate about.
For sure.
Um, and we can close that gender gap just by bringing more awareness. I mean, MJ BizCon, I don't know if you follow them, but they did say, like, I went to the most recent conference that was in Vegas, and I went to one of the seminars, and they were talking about how there's been a 22% decline in
Hmm.
women-owned businesses in the cannabis industry since, like, I think it was 2018 or 19.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, wow, I mean, who's to say what the truth is? How are they getting these numbers? One, but
Right.
if we're talking about nationwide, that might be true. But in California, I feel like the awareness is there as far as women-owned brands. And it could I mean, it could just be because, I work at Kiva, where it's very made aware of like women-owned brands, or at least co-founded by women brands. Um, but I just feel like it's always going to be that way as far as that gender gap. But I think the point is not to have it totally equalized. I think the point is to have to the discriminations to not be there. You
For sure.
know, it's just like,
Because like eventually we don't even want to have to, say women brand, like it should just be like known, like,
yeah,
like who who's running the game, like, in this company, like who's the major players. And that's why I feel like, and like my little soapbox, I feel like this podcast is important because like how many shows are out there highlighting like women's voices specifically, you know what I mean? There's like
hmm,
shows out there that's like everybody is a part of it, and maybe there's like five women on the show, but like I feel
right,
like it's super important to like highlight women's voices as well. And thank you RMR for the opportunity to be a part
straight
of
up.
this. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just like the sports arena, right? It's like the sports industry. You see on a panelist of sports enthusiasts or their previous players, right? I mean, quite naturally, there's going to be the panelist is going to be full of men. But where awareness comes in is where you'll have someone, there are plenty of females that can go toe to toe with any guy out there when it comes to sports. And so to shut their voice out is to shut out your audience. And I was watching a little skit I think I saw on this guy's viral right now, but he talked about how women's Rockefeller didn't support women's rights for the reasons why we thought.
Hmm.
He supported it because that meant women, there was a huge opportunity for women to be a part of the job system, to
Right.
pay taxes, and also, so that was the main reason, was to get the tax dollars from women. And the second reason is so that children go to school early on, the mothers have less impact, and therefore the government, the system is raising those children. So the brainwashing
Mm.
starts at a very young age when you pull the woman out of the family and being such a huge impact and influence in her life. I mean, same thing can be said for slavery. A lot of the reasons why we think these laws were passed was not for the good in heart. It was not for that purpose. It happened where, we all appreciate the equality there, but at the same time, it's not for the reasons why we thought. So keeping that in mind, I think that where we're at now is just like, I even look at a lot of these companies and brands within the cannabis industry, and you look at who's in their, leadership team, right? Or C-suite or executive team, or whatever you want to call it. You look at the people at the top, and there's less than, 10% women and minority. Now, a part of me wanted to, say, oh, that's discrimination. But then I asked myself to be a little bit more open-minded to what it really is. And to me, yes, discrimination does exist, and that happens. Another part of that is that people feel uncomfortable working with people who are not like them.
Right.
They don't identify that as being, like they're discriminating, but they
Right.
are. So it's more of a passive discrimination than it is like direct in your face. And I just
Right.
wanted to kind of point that out because I think we can all get hot and heated about that topic when we're like, oh, that's discrimination. And we're quick to get a lawyer and we're quick to sue people. But if you really have a heart to change, you really have to put your mind in that person's mind. You have to try to pull understanding from what's the root of that decision that you made to have everybody look like you on the executive team. And then
Right.
why is my presence make you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Why? You should want diversity in your company so that you have a broader perspective. And that's how you're able to take out the competition because your audience is diverse. So you need to have the perspective of those who are also diverse on your team. So when you rule that out, there's all kinds of problems that exist. So that is the awareness I want to bring to people so that they're a little bit more understanding about, okay, why is it that I feel more comfortable bringing in my buddies from the beer industry into the company and I'm not seeking out, more diverse individuals who don't think like me? Why is that?
Right.
I just want to cause that
Who are just
conversation.
as who could be more or just as qualified, right?
Well, we all know that to be true. I mean, you can find, as far as talent and skill, you can find that anywhere. At this point, you choose people to be on your team not just because of the skill and the talent, but also because of like their personality,
Right.
their, like what they stand
Their
for,
work
their
ethic.
mission.
Right.
Yeah, your corporation is your company is built on the backs of the people who work for your organization. So it also has to look like them. That's when
Yeah.
you have an honest organization.
Yeah.
But if you just have a little picture of, a person of minority on your website
And then
and you're
call it a
trying to,
day.
yeah, but then when you walk into the organization, you're like, damn, looks like all white bros to me right now. Why do you have
Yeah. For real.
it just
Yeah.
doesn't
Sometimes it's just
there's a disconnect.
yeah, for sure. Well, Adrienne, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I feel like we could talk forever
Oh,
about
we can.
everything, for
We
real.
can.
So I would love to have
Thank
you
you.
come back. But is there anything you want to shout out before we end it for today?
Nah, I am I just want to shout out you guys, Respect My Region. I just became acquainted with Colin and ran into him at the Green Street event that's always popping in downtown LA. You guys are doing great work. Want to collaborate and work with you guys even more. And thank you again for the opportunity to be on the show. And I expect great things from you in the future, Maddie, and I would love to stay in contact with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, let's definitely keep connected. It's been awesome. Well, that's our show, guys. This is Higher Women from Respect My Region. I'm Maddie, and we're out.